My pastor is not a Calvinist. Should I leave the church? That's the question that I'll be answering today. Welcome to Truth Transforms. My name's Adam Markley. I'll be answering a question that came in today, on voicemail. If you want to ask a question on voicemail, you can do so. Just give a call to this number here, 1-800-251-4919. That's 1-800-251-4919. I'd like to get more questions coming in, and then I can answer a number of those questions. I will get to as many as I can. I just have one question this week, so I'm going to go ahead and answer that question. By the way, though, you can ask a question about a recent podcast. You can also just leave a comment, and you can share a testimonial. If you'd like to share a testimonial about a podcast you like, this overall podcast in general, or a particular episode that you like, this is the place to do that. Voice is always priority. Voice is top priority on that, and priority also goes to truth supporters. So love to get more voice messages from you. Also, if you're new here, we've got a free resource for you, and that is an ebook entitled Lessons in Philippians. It's an overview of Philippians, something I hope you find to be a blessing during the chaotic time that we're living in. You can pick that up at preachingforgodsglory.org/gift. That's preachingforgodsglory.org/gift. Okay, so let me find the button for the voicemail. All right, so I'm going to listen to, there's one voicemail, it's two voicemails. So we're going to listen to part of the first one and then the second one.
Hey, how you doing, Adam? This is Kenyatta Lane. I want to let you know that I've been blessed by listening to your messages. You are truly a gift from the Lord. And I have some concerns about some questions personally that's going on in my life that I feel that you may be able to give me some insight on some decisions that I should make.
Well, I appreciate those kind words. I'm going to end it there because I think he went into leaving his phone number, and I'm going to play that on the air. This is just a voicemail box. It's not an actual personal phone number, but I definitely appreciate those kind of words. And he called back with the question, so I'll answer this as best as I can. Of course, I'm not there to give specifics, but I can maybe help with some guidelines. So let's listen to the question.
Once again, how you doing, Adam? This is Kenyatta. Sorry about the mishap earlier. You instructed to state your question. So my question is that, is it a primary issue to teach, when you're teaching the gospel, that God does pick and choose who will be saved? Because I was in church last week, and the pastor said that in this church, we don't preach that God pick and choose. So I want your opinion on, is this primary or is this secondary, or how should I handle this statement, and should I continue to go to that church? Please reply. Thank you.
All right, Kenyatta, I appreciate the question, and there's a lot there in terms of how long you've been going to the church, how involved you are in the church, whether this pastor is saying something in line with the statement of faith, the church's statement of faith, or out of line with the church's statement of faith. But what he's saying is, we don't preach election here. We don't preach that God elects, that God chooses. We don't preach sovereign grace, that God is sovereign in salvation. Now, the way in which he preaches that and the way in which he explains that is, he might be very hostile to that position, or he might just say that's just not something that we teach here. And I don't know how long you've been going there, if you've been able to have a conversation with him, with elders. Is it a primary issue? It's not a primary issue in my mind. This is not an issue of a primary issue in terms of a doctrinal triage. A primary issue would be an issue of a salvific issue, an issue of deity of Christ, Trinity, things of that sort. There are secondary issues which are very important issues, but not salvific issues. And then there are tertiary issues, third level, that are going to be issues that you may still separate in fellowship, but they're not going to be, well, I guess actually we can move to something like eschatology on a third level issue that's getting a little bit more heated these days. But eschatology might be an issue of third level. Second level would actually probably be more like baptism, infant baptism versus baptism by immersion. Certainly enough to separate, to not be in fellowship in terms of worshiping together on Sunday morning, but we can commune with them, we can fellowship with them. Baptists and Presbyterians can absolutely come together. Where are you going to put the issue of Calvinism? It's going to depend on some different factors. Number one, I would say don't ever leave a church without talking to the pastor, without talking to the elders. Number two, I would say don't jump to leaving a church just off of one statement. Certainly, if you heard a statement that bothers you, then go and talk to the pastor about that. Maybe ask for additional explanation. He seems to be making it clear potentially that we don't teach Calvinism here, the 5 points of Calvinism. You can maybe explain, well, where are you at on this? Maybe he could walk through. Calvinism is the tulip, I could walk through that. Total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of the saints. That's the framework of what Calvinism is as a soteriology, the study of salvation. I'm saying this for others. You're probably aware since you're calling about the issue. But talking through that and seeing where he's at on the matter, and how far away you are. Maybe he's a 4-point Calvinist. Maybe he's a 3.5 pointer. Whatever it might be. That's a conversation to be had, and then you need to determine, and he needs to determine, how much of an issue is this going to be. I think this is really a matter that should be discussed with your pastor, with church leadership, as to whether this is going to work out. If you've visited the church just a few times and you're not so sure about the church, that's one thing. If you've visited the church just a limited period of time, well, that's a very different story than you've been going to the church for. First off, are you a member of the church? Are you not a member of the church? Because those are all things that are going to make a difference in how you approach this. But basically, I would say I would talk to the pastor and find out, and I would pray about this. Is this something that I can be okay with this doctrinal difference? This is going to depend on what other options you have in the area. Do you have other good options? Or is this a solid church, otherwise solid, but you have some disagreement here that you see could present a problem in the future, but otherwise this is a solid church and a faithful preacher, but you differ in this area? Because we're living in a time where it's harder and harder to find a good church, and you might need to realize that maybe you need to bend in this area. Maybe you don't, though, if there are other good options. So weigh your options, weigh out the pros and cons, talk to your pastor, talk to leadership, consider how many other options are there of different churches in the area if you were to leave. Don't ever rush to leaving. And that's kind of my takeaway for any type of call like this, really, is don't ever rush to leave a church, and don't ever leave a church that you're heavily invested in, and certainly that you're a member of. Definitely, if you're a member of a church, and that's a level of commitment that's should be a member of a church, and that's a serious level of commitment that you don't just abandon off of one statement. If the pastor has said something that's off base of the doctrinal statement of the church, well, then that's more serious than if he's said something that's consistent with the doctrinal statement of the church. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's all I can do to kind of give you some guidance. I hope that helps to give you some next steps, give you an idea of how to move forward there. So really the next step I would say for you on this is to talk to your pastor, to talk to church leadership, and maybe get a better idea of where they're at doctrinally. And then you can pray and walk through and consider if this works, if this will work moving forward. Maybe you're investigating the church and trying to determine whether to move forward. I think this needs to be done with church leadership, with the pastor, because depending upon his response, maybe you're okay with it, but he's going to have an issue with it. You know, you don't really know until you have those conversations. And so talk to him in a manner that's not, you know, an aggressive or hostile manner, but just a conversational manner about, hey, we've got a, you know, this is what I believe. What do you believe about this? And if you can have a conversation, you know, and pray and ask the Lord to help you see what you should do in this situation, and ask for wisdom. James 1:5 says, if we ask for wisdom, God will pour it out generously. And I'm confident that God will help you walk through this situation. So I hope that is a helpful piece of advice, a helpful piece of guidance for moving forward in the situation that you're in. Thanks for joining me today. If you would like to ask a question, again, you can do so by calling this number here. You can ask a question, leave a comment, share a testimonial. 1-800-251-4919. That's 1-800-251-4919. If you'd like to support this ministry and this feature, you can do so by providing a one-time love offering at preachingforgodsglory.org/donate. And you can also become a truth supporter, which is a monthly supporter at preachingforgodsglory.org/truth supporter. And as a thank you for your generosity, I provide Theology Thursdays, exclusive content, and more. Consider taking a look at that. Go to the website. I've got an overview video. I've got a lot of content on there in Lordship salvation versus free grace theology, content in Philippians, and I'm working on a deep dive teaching on Christians and AI. And you can feel free to call in with questions regarding AI, regarding Christian living, different pastoral questions, any one of those things. God bless you. Thank you for watching. You can also, leave comments down below, or go to preachingforgodsglory.org/questions to ask a written question to be answered in a future podcast. All right. Bye.